Off-duty soldier armed with handgun saves 100 lives during mall siege. You will not hear that in the U.S. press. It was a British Royal Marine off-duty, and it looks like was not supposed to be carrying the handgun, but still did it. Smart guy. So he reportedly saved really over 100 people. Islamic terror groups are killing Christians all over the world, and Obama wants to ally with them. That's coming up. It's all on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. And now a London Guardian top reporters come out and call for the United Nations to disarm all Americans. And it's called for the UN to basically invade America. It says the world cannot stand idly by. That's a quote. Just to show you what the UN treaty is all about. And then Lois Lerner, who said, I take the fifth, the head of the tax-exempt section of the IRS, one of the top 5 people. And then she went on to say, I did nothing wrong. I didn't go after anybody. We didn't do this. It's not true. You don't take the fifth and then go testify. She perjured herself. I don't have to be a lawyer or a cop to know that. We've interviewed a lot of constitutional lawyers, but I know the law. I'm going to ask a guy about the law right now and get his take if he thinks I'm wrong. Then we're going to get into what he's a real expert on, running the international unit for the president when the president would go overseas. And he obviously quit famously a few years ago. Or last year, because he could no longer go along with the anti-American stuff he saw being spewed. He's got a book that's already going up the charts. It's not even out yet, but you can get it at Amazon pre-order. Life Inside the Bubble. And, of course, he is a former Secret Service agent, Dan Bongino, who, working full-time in the Newark Police Department, he completed both his bachelor's and master's degree in psychology during his tenure as special agent with the U.S. Secret Service. Dan Bongino completed his second a graduate degree, a master's of business administration at Penn State University, where he tested the top of his class. And he proudly joined the Secret Service in '99. And you can go to Bongino.com. He's one of our favorite guests. What a great patriot. And we appreciate him having time to be with us. When his book's officially out, I want to read it and get him back on to tell some of the stories that are in it. But before we get into the Naval shooting, is why we wanted to get you on, and now the Benghazi part 2 with the al-Qaeda people in Nairobi, Kenya, and that situation. What do you make of Lois Lerner saying, I take the fifth, but I didn't do any of this? The fifth doesn't mean you go testify and then you don't get in trouble for perjury, right? The fifth means you shut up, correct?
Well, you know, Alex, not when you're one of the let-them-eat-cake, aristocratic, life inside the bubble politicians that just knows all the insiders. I mean, if you and I were to do that, God forbid, Alex, that you were being put on trial for something, and you said, folks, I'm going to plead the fifth, but before I do it, let me just say, I didn't do it. I had nothing to do with it. Thanks. See you later. You'd promptly be thrown in handcuffs and thrown back on the stand, because you did not, in fact, plead the fifth. You gave testimony. But don't let that affect you, folks. Remember, when you're part of the political elite and you're in the new bourgeoisie, don't worry. You're connected. The president will save you. I mean, think about this, Alex. How disgusting is this? And by the way, thank you to your audience for their incredible support. I'm pretty flattered. Every time I'm on your show, my Facebook page gets like thousands of new likes. But I put a post up yesterday about this specific thing on my Facebook page, and I wrote in there that, isn't it amazing? I had to resign from the Secret Service, had to leave my benefits, my pension, everything behind, just to run for office in a free country because of the Hatch Act. Okay, that was the rules. This woman targets people like you and me and anyone else that has any kind of libertarian or small government leanings, targets you, admits to it, apologizes for it, gets a taxpayer-funded vacation since May, and now this woman gets a taxpayer-funded retirement? I mean, are we in the United States anymore? This is amazing.
Now, absolutely, you're an expert in this, but it looks like racketeering when you have an organization targeting individuals to violate their rights and auditing them, taking their money, telling churches what they can pray, persecuting and then perjuring. Isn't that organized crime? I mean, in my view, studying a little bit of law, isn't it organized crime when a big, powerful organization gets together to deprive people of their money and their liberty and their freedom?
Well, I'm glad you don't try to take the edge off this thing and play nice, because there's too many people doing that. And I said the last time I was on your show that you want to stop this tomorrow, you start bringing people out of there in handcuffs. You start pulling people out of there in handcuffs tomorrow for violating not one, not two, but 3 or 4 constitutionally protected liberties. free speech, fair trial, due process, you name it. We can go down the line. I mean, even Article 1, Section 1, Clause 1, all legislative powers shall be vested in the Congress. Well, not really. All legislative powers seem to be vested wherever the president says so. I mean, the amount of violations, the stomping on the Constitution and the shredding of it in front of your very eyes, I'm telling you, like you just said, you want to stop this tomorrow, start putting on the bracelets, start perp walking people outside of government buildings for doing this, and do real investigation. This will stop tomorrow. But no one's got the guts to tell you that because everybody's all bought into this system. And unfortunately, some on the Republican side as well who are just like, well, there's a lot of fights out there right now. Maybe we should just, let this one go. No, maybe we should. This is not what that flag represents or stands for.
Well, Dan Bongino, famous Secret Service agent who resigned over just the outrageous things he saw, and is now coming out with a book, and he's also running for office. We're going to talk about that before you leave us, but I want to get into the whole situation first with the shooter and the tragedy there at the Naval Yard and the SWAT team being ordered to stand down. Now the ATF's not allowed in. Looks like a cover-up here. And then we've also got the situation with Obama connected to the radical Muslims in Kenya, and then Odinga, and then letting them in out of Somalia. I mean, this is really getting suspicious. I want to get your take on that. But just briefly, back to tyranny here. When criminals and when an attorney general who's guaranteed to not go after Lois Lerner get in there and are above the law and are untouchable, that's when you get a Stalin, a Hitler, a Mao. And I really think we're getting to that point where at least she resigned, but with a golden parachute. If we don't start seeing some people get arrested Nixon had to resign. If the president doesn't resign when he's clearly gone way past Nixon, we've set precedents here that will end this country. Right.
And Alex, keep in mind, Nixon had to be pardoned. I mean, there was no pardon because there were no charges. And the joke of this whole thing is the Accountability Review Report, the ARB on Lois Lerner and the IRS scandal, and let's call it a scandal. It's exactly what it is. The near criminality that occurred in this thing, the criminality, was that in the report, they don't really say she did anything wrong. They dance, they do a little ballet around it. Everything's nicely choreographed. And to this day, they're saying there was no targeting. Well, if there was no targeting, then why did the IRS apologize? I don't understand. They apologize to try to get out in front of this thing. And you're right. You said it. The fabric of a free, liberty-loving society and what has made us different throughout human history is the fact that everyone from the President of the United States of America to your congressman to a man or woman working his butt off for $10,000 a year has the absolute same constitutional protections under our law. Can you really say that now? Can you seriously look me in the eye? And I know your answer. But to your audience, can you look me in the eye and say, oh, yeah, that's the kind of country we live in now? Really? You sure about that? I'm not.
It's so creepy the way they persecuted people. This is real tyranny like you read about in the Soviet Union, and now it's like, oh, business as usual, amazing. Shifting gears, Obama has said in 2 speeches, as you know now, we should restrict our guns. It's our fault that people died at the Navy Yard when this guy had security clearances. It was a victim disarmament zone with only MPs armed. And he's now calling the Fort Hood shooting non-terror, saying it's gun owners' fault that guy clearly with Al-Qaeda did that. This is crazy.
Well, it's funny. I was at a Second Amendment rally yesterday in Annapolis, my home state here in Maryland, and I ran into a few of your supporters. They had your bumper stickers out there. So you got a loyal audience out there. But at the rally, I brought up this exact point. I mean, folks, this argument is now getting absurd. No one is defaulting to the natural answer to this question. Why, in God's name, and I mean that, I'm not using his name in vain, because you have a right to self-protection given you by God, not by bureaucrats, okay? Are we disarming our American military personnel on military bases we know are targets to become sheep for the wolves of society? Can anybody answer me that question again with a straight face? You go to 2 houses as a burglar, you want to break in, and you're armed. Do you go to the home with the sign on the front door that says, I can guarantee you this homeowner believes in liberal policies and does not have a gun? Or do you go to the next house that says, come in here, fire at your own will because I'll shoot you first. We got a 12-gauge waiting for you? I mean, we laugh like, oh, that's a stupid question. No, it's not a stupid question. It's a very practical question. The gun control laws are myths. It's a mastery of the language. There's no such thing as gun control. It is a mythical argument promulgated by the left, who's absolutely determined to make your self-protection rights dependent on them and branches of the government that can't possibly do it. I love our cops. I love our military. I was a cop. But, Alex, I'll tell you, when you need one in 5 minutes, it's very rare they get there with it in any less than 10. They're not there to protect you. They don't enforce the law. That's a Supreme Court case. Everybody needs to understand that. This is a ridiculous argument. And like you said, these gun-free zones, I mean, this is just, I mean, it's beyond even reason anymore. They're only gun-free for the good guys. What do you think, the sign stops the bad guys? They actually target gun-free zones, and the bloodshed is going to continue until Americans wake up and find out the fact that you have a God-given right to protect yourself using the same means the wolves among us.
Well, look at how Obama is using the Inspector General and the Pentagon to block allowing military personnel who live on base to have firearms. So that's another gun-free zone. And then you have the act passed under Bush that they still haven't implemented, where retired law enforcement has a reciprocal concealed carry all over the country. I mean, this is just outrageous. These bureaucrats don't even trust the military. When the Secretary of Defense goes to Afghanistan, they take all the guns and all the ammo from them.
Well, Alex, look at my case. I was a Secret Service agent for 12 years, lead advance agent for the President of the United States in an active war zone in Afghanistan. I can't get a carry permit in Maryland right now. It's taken forever. They have a backlog. Not to mention the Secret Service, for some unknown reason, I'm probably on their pay no mind list because they don't like me speaking out, I would guess, still hasn't processed my paperwork for this. It's been almost a year. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Let's be clear. You resign, upstanding, guy, 4 degrees, all the rest of it, great family guy. You, who I know have been getting threats and stuff because you've been exposing Obama, you cannot have a gun to protect your family.
No, I can't get a concealed. No, in Maryland, it takes eons. It is rationing by time, and the Secret Service will not process my paperwork. It's taking forever. I put the paperwork in 6 months ago. I mean, I've gotten real, legitimate threats from real people in very real jails that I arrested, documented threats on recording. People threatening me for investigating. This isn't some paranoia. This is the real world. I have 2 daughters. I mean, this is absolute. And keep in mind, Alex, if you just wanted to go be a lawbreaker and an outlaw and violate the law, it'd take you 5 minutes to go get a gun. Go travel down to Glen Burnie, down the road from where I live, and pick up one off the street for $500. These people
Listen, I can drive to a corner in East Austin right now and in 30 minutes buy anything I want. I have been in the bad parts of town before and had people try to sell me drugs and guns. I walked out one time of a grocery store, and the guy opened a trunk up and had guns right there.
Oh, Alex, it's a joke. I was a cop. I've never once arrested anyone for a gun crime that had the gun. Wait. Legally, ever. Yet you arrest these guys who have these Saturday night specials that'll kill you just as quickly, and you say to them, hey, you guys know there was a gun law against, concealed carry in New York? What? They don't care. They laugh. They think we're idiots. They think we are so stupid, disarming the civilian populace, taking away their liberty, their God-given liberty. While these guys, again, they prey on us like a bunch of sheep, and they laugh. They think this is ridiculous. These bourgeoisie, lawmakers. Keep in mind, Alex, all protected by men with guns. I mean, the hypocrisy is so absurd.
I was reading, they've got 20 SWAT guys in 3 shifts a day, sometimes up to 40, at the Capitol, but then meanwhile, these guys want our guns, just like they're exempt from Obamacare. Let me ask you this, because you're running for Congress. I wonder if a congressman, once you're a congressman from Maryland, if you'll be able to have a gun. Probably then. Tell us about the campaign a little bit, then I want to shift gears over to WorldNet Daily, and others have confirmed Obama, through Odinga, his cousin, and others, have been funding the radical Muslims in Kenya and using that to fund the radical Muslims in other areas of Africa, like Egypt, and what you think of the fact that our government's funding al-Qaeda in Syria right now. That's finally mainstream news. Well, first off, what's your take on that? And then we'll get into the Congress run.
Yeah, Alex, I mean, when are we going to learn? I mean, what is our success record on foreign interventions at this point? I mean, I have a vested interest in saying this, okay, to your listeners. This isn't some campaign slogan. I'm not saying this to get a campaign donation from you folks. I lost an uncle in Vietnam before I was even born. My mother's older brother. Changed our entire life. My mother was never the same. Neither was my grandmother. Ever. Ever the same. I mean, changed their lives for what? You know what took down, ultimately, it's going to take down capitalism. You know, we're involved in our success record is almost nil. And the sad thing is that success record isn't paid for with electoral outcomes. It's paid for by the blood of real American men and women who died doing it. What are we doing? What are we doing over there? Do you even have an end game? This president's foreign policy, arming al-Qaeda rebels, al-Nusra in Syria, are we kidding? What's the record of success with that one? 9/11? I mean, are we kidding? This is I don't understand like how a government full of supposedly bow tie wearing bureaucrats who are intelligent, have all these fancy degrees, come to the conclusion sitting around a big wooden table that this is a good idea. I mean, this is the problem when we elect out-of-touch people who don't live in the real world and eat foie gras for lunch and not oatmeal like I just had. It was good oatmeal, but I liked it. I mean, that's the point, folks. That's why we need citizen representatives who understand the economy, have an understanding of law, but don't have to be lawyers, who understand the bigger philosophical meanings to liberty, who understand the works of Sol and Bastiat, Why Liberty Matters, because these fools just don't get it. I mean,
what they don't get is that the value is being virtuous and having freedom, and that's what builds great civilizations. They think their kleptocratic insider gangs of government and special interest is power, and you look at the seedy people and all the things they do, we are ruled more and more by kleptocratic criminals. But this is the issue, and Eisenhower warned of it. The military-industrial complex and the big foreign banks that own and control it, it's not good for American interest. It's not good for our name. It's not good for our debts. But it is good for the weapons manufacturers and the big banks that take over these countries after we bomb them into the Stone Age. That's why we're doing this, because it's good for the internationalists. That's why we're backing al-Qaeda in Syria.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that's been my, I run as a Republican now, but that's been my problem with the Republican Party. I mean, I probably rail against them as much as I do the Democrats. That's been my beef, is that your government's bought and sold. And not to shamelessly plug this thing, but in my book, The Life Inside the Bubble, if you take a look at it, I'll get you guys an advance copy soon, you'll see that I write extensively about this, how your government's bought and sold on both sides. And there are some good people there, don't get me wrong. I know a few of them myself that I've met personally who are good people. But when I say a few, I mean a few. I mean, you can probably count on a couple of hands how many good people have. It's bought and sold. You have military interest. You have a finance interest. And the real fight is not Republican-Democrat. It's not even libertarian versus liberal. The real fight is elitist versus populist. Do you believe your government should be a representative of popular appeal, constitutional republic? Or do you believe your government should be run by elitists, finance, military, industrial folks? I mean, that's the real fight, regardless of your party label. It's meaningless anymore because both sides have sold out. I've been through a campaign. I know how this works. That's why I rely on grassroots support. Now, I don't go shilling to people that I don't need it.
And Dan, I want to get into the campaign and see how that's going, because we really want to get good libertarian constitutional type people in. I see a huge crop of great folks that if people just get behind them will get into Congress. 2014 could be the year to really turn the tide. But 3 weeks ago, Judicial Watch, I don't know if you saw this, it was on Drudge, they got the documents where they're now teaching in the regular Army manual, and we have a copy of it, DOD training manual, extremist founding fathers would not be welcome in today's military, and they actually badmouth George Washington. Now, that's Twilight Zone.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, the FBI manual, too. And I saw it when I was in the Secret Service, this political correctness. We would have to take these online training courses. You know, the one, click the link and you got to sit through these tedious courses. Some of the stuff in these PowerPoints you would watch was just amazing. The political correctness. You know, we're not willing to call a terrorist, this general fear of if someone was an Islamic fundamentalist, not practiced Islam, is an Islamic, a fanatic, then you couldn't say that. I mean, but you have to remember, Alex, as a criminal investigator, that's a very salient point. I mean, there's a very real penalty for this atmosphere of political correctness, and that investigations are going to go to die, and real people are going to suffer, because you can't say, well, we're looking into this group in this specific area, because we can't say they may be fanatics that practice. The
reason is the criminal black ops groups that are running our country are running these groups and plan on using them. They're protecting them. Dan Bongino, thank you so much for the time. In the 1 minute we have left, how is the campaign for the 6th District of Maryland going?
Hey, we are rocking. Your supporters just piled into our donation site last time, so I appreciate it. They were all on our Facebook page. They're really active. You got a really loyal audience, and I appreciate the time, and I really appreciate your audience support.
And Dan, you're doing pretty good in the polls. I hope you win up there.
Yeah, we're going to win, my friend. We're going to win.
All right, well, I'm going to call you Congressman Dan Bongino. Thank you so much for the time.
Thanks, Alex. See ya.
All right, there you go, folks. We'll get him back home when the book officially comes out. But that's a good guy. Really good guy. I can tell he has the fire of liberty burning in his gut and his mind. We need more of that because the tyranny is taking over.
Now you can watch Alex Jones live at Infowars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
You can also browse the network, the InfoWars Nightly News,
and over 60 movies and documentaries all together in one place.
You can watch the Alex Jones radio show live as it happened.
So check it out, Infowars.com/show.